everybody, and welcome to the live stream Ask Me Anything About Politics. And this is the place where you can ask any questions about politics that you like. There's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that things are particularly confusing these days with all the misinformation and propaganda that is being bandied about. What's up, Banda Boss? Good to see you again. So yeah, this is a place, this is a resource that you can use for figuring out what's actually going on in politics, in the government, in the country, and depending on which country you ask about, I might be able to help out with that too. But it's not my strong suit. So yeah, any questions? Just throw them in the chats. I am happy to answer questions from everybody, regardless of how you vote or if you don't vote at all. Democrats, Republicans, I am happy to answer anybody's questions so long as they're being asked in good faith. What's up, Triska? Great to see you again. So, yeah, throw your questions in the chat. This is not a show where fighting happens. This is not a show where, you know, I call people up and I yell at them for having different political beliefs than me, or I call people stupid or uninformed or anything like that. What's up, Flamingo Mo? Excellent to see you again as well. And yeah, so if you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and I will do my best to give you a great answer. You know, politics can be very confusing sometimes. There's a lot of words and last names that we all just kind of bandy about as though everybody already knows what the fuck the deal is with them, but not everybody does, you know. And there can very easily be a barrier to entry for a lot of people trying to figure out what's going on in politics. All right, things are blowing up over on Twitch. Yeah, baby. I am not getting any of the dark money from the Dems. Somebody, I guess I need to have more followers or more active live streams in order to even get on my radar. But yeah, no, I have not been approached by Chorus or anything like that. It's the Rocketeer, new purple background. What is this woke nonsense? I don't know. I wanted to try to do a little update and see, you know, if this affected the show at all. Maybe look a little less janky. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I hope you guys like it, all the regulars. You let me know if you are desperate for me to get back to my old aesthetic. You know, I'm open to any and all criticisms. But that's not what we're here to do today, guys. We are here for talking about politics, for answering questions about politics that you all might have. There is no such thing as a dumb question. I do not believe in making people feel stupid or ashamed for not knowing things or trying to learn new things. It is all good vibes here. Yeah, baby says, so will you take dark money from Dems in the future? So I do believe that there is a difference between an organization that is supporting left-leaning content creators and dark money. You know, like, I don't believe that people need to be ashamed to be supported by incubators and things like that. So long as what you were doing is saying accurate information. And so long as I am able to say accurate information, then yeah, I will accept support from anybody, you know. But yeah, I think the issue is where adversarial nations like North Korea and Russia are paying American citizens to say things that are not true. You know, that is the issue, and that is where my what do you call it? That is where my you know my openness to receiving assistance ends. I appreciate. I'm glad that you like that. I'm glad that you like the new setup. It's the Rocketeer. All right. Deborah Alexander says, "Are we in a civil war?" No, we are not. Flamingo Mo, did you know Swedish fish are made in Turkey? How will tariffs affect my ability to get candy? I mean, everything is going to be more expensive, including your candy from Sweden. Let's see. Your candy from Turkey. Jacob, the downfall of Alabama football is happening right now. I don't follow college sports or regular sports for that matter. Deborah Alexander, are you satisfied with my answer that we are not in a civil war? Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, regardless of if you're a Democrat or Republican or further to the right than me or further to the left than me. It does not matter. All good faith questions will receive a good faith answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so maybe you're one of those people that doesn't know what reconciliation or the filibuster or a continuing resolution is, then you can ask those questions here. There's no judgments whatsoever. If you're somebody on the right and you always wanted to ask a Democrat a question, you know, this is the place where you can do that. And there's no judgments here. I know that some people, they feel like they can't ask certain questions because it would make them seem more MAGA or libtard than they actually are. And, you don't have to worry about any of those aspersions here. Pol Muspor says, thoughts on Israel. I am for the citizens of Israel the same way that I am for the citizens of Palestine and the citizens of Russia and North Korea and France and Germany. But I do not believe that the governing bodies of both Palestine and Israel are operating in good faith or international law. Both Hamas and Netanyahu are guilty of war crimes, and many independent organizations have said that what Israel is doing is a genocide to the people of Palestine. And so, because of that, I do not believe that America should be continuing to send them money and weapons. Right, let's see here. Corny Lope says, seems like a centrist. I'm a progressive. Burger Over Hot Dog says, what is going on in Palestine? It's, according to a bunch of independent organizations, it is a genocide that the Israeli government is perpetuating. They are starving the citizens by keeping food and assistance from getting in. Jeff, for real this time, says, do you think any political discussion is constructive? Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. Heath says, do you support the current ethnic cleansing and regime change? I do not support any ethnic cleansing or regime change. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist Official says, what are your take on Mexico's protests against gringos? I haven't heard anything about them. Is it a problem with like tourism, like the way that in Spain they are, and Japan they are protesting against tourists? Andrea Pizzell says, don't tell Rudy that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what Rudy has to do with what we were just talking about. Anonymous 101 says, what are your thoughts on MEGA? I don't know what MEGA is. It's only been about 60 seconds, but I'm impressed by your character. I'm impressed by your character, Jeff, and you got a cute dog in your profile picture. Thank you, Pol Muspor. I appreciate you. Any other questions? Just throw them in the chat. Alrighty. Let's see here. Make Iran great again. I mean, I don't know what the vibe is with Make Iran great again. I don't know if anybody, if that means that their leaders are trying to do Trump shit, then I'm against it. Yeah. Let's see here. Yu-Gi-Oh says, should Latin America put up a border wall if America does it? I mean, walls are kind of stupid, and they don't really do the thing that they're supposed to do. America's border wall is not going to accomplish what it's trying to accomplish. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. Nadia says, can you explain socializing to those who don't know what it is? Socializing meaning just like hanging out with people. Is that what you mean? Socialism is what Nadia meant. Yeah, socialism is basically when we all bandy together, we all pitch in a little bit of money so that we can afford to get something that would help out everybody. So you ever had like a whole bunch of roommates and you all went in together to get cable or a newspaper subscription or something like that? That is essentially what socialism is. Alrighty, Jeff Real, I avoid political session. There's a lot of mud throwing out there. Keep doing your thing. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you being here and I appreciate your support. Russ, USMC, says, what actions by a political candidate will win your vote in the upcoming election? I'm a progressive, so I need my politicians to be full-throatedly in favor of doing something about both climate change and income inequality and gun violence, and recognize that the moment that we are in necessitates some electoral change, and it is unfair the way that Republicans have an unnecessary advantage in winning electoral politics. Something needs to be done about our media environment as well. So yeah, but I mean that's the primary, But in the general election, I'll vote for a Democrat because Democrats are better than Republicans. Emo Bird says, thoughts on Gavin running for president? He'll probably do a pretty good job as president. He's not my first choice, but he's also done some things that I really enjoy and think were beneficial for California. And I think he's doing a really good job messaging right now against Trump. Chad Bitson says, what do you think was in the black bags thrown out of the window of the White House? Probably shredded documents, but I've got no fucking idea, man. Yu-Gi-Oh says, I'm in a sociology class. Any tips on political discussion? Ask more questions than making statements. Do a lot more listening. Try to find your agreeal points and then build from there. And don't get distracted by cognitive dissonances or straw man arguments and shit like that. It isn't necessary to negate everything that a person says. In order for you guys to come to some sort of conclusion. Don't try to win your arguments. Try to have a productive conversation. Squidball says, why did the Republicans win the popular vote? Misinformation and propaganda, Squidball. Anonymous says, who's your first choice for president? Any Democrat. John Doe says, thoughts on J.D. Vance? He's a liar, he's a con man, he's an opportunist, he's extremely dangerous, but thankfully he has the charisma of a wall of wet paint. So I really don't worry about him running the table or anything like that. LWJ says, do you think Trump's health is okay? I think as much as an 80-year-old who only eats McDonald's' health can be okay. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his specific situation is right now. You know, I know that there's all these rumors swirling around that he's like on death's door or something like that. He might be, he might not be. You know, you can look at old people and think that they are seconds away from death and then they live for another 5 years, or you can look at somebody and think they're perfectly healthy and then, you know, and then it's game over. Jeff says, how long before we are living under Yarvin and Teal's tech monarchy? If people like me and you don't do the work of stopping it, Jeff, then it will happen very quickly. But if people like you and me do the work of stopping it, then we will manage to, we will manage to avoid it. Emo Bird says, do you think there was electoral fraud? I mean, I'm waiting to see how the Rockland case turns out. We can't make any assumptions right now. All of these soft audits have come back clean. So everything looks like it was on the up and up. It is accurate to say, though, that Republicans cheated in that election. The things that Elon Musk was doing were not legal, as far as like bribing people to register to vote or sending out mailers that were from the Harris, quote unquote, from the Harris campaign, but actually were them. There's a ton of dark money that goes into Republican politics. There's a bunch of electoral advantages that they get. They do voter suppression. They shut down polling locations in Democratic areas. They do voter ID as a member of suppressing the vote. So they definitely cheated. But were vote totals actually changed by the counting machines or by the robots? That I do not know. Cameron Hodge, good to see you again. Thoughts on the drug boat strike yesterday? I think it was a good thing. So we are all in the unenviable position of not being able to trust anything that comes out of the government anymore, because everybody that works for the Trump administration is willing to say whatever Trump wants them to say, regardless of if it is accurate or not. It is weirdly escalatory, the fact that he has sent those warships down to Venezuela. This is supposed to be the guy that's ending all the wars. This is supposed to be the guy that deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. And so did they destroy a drug boat? We don't know. We know that they said that they did that, but we don't know. Did it happen in international waters? You know, is the vessel property of the state of Venezuela? Is this going to escalate into more of a conflict with Venezuela? Like, I've got no fucking idea, but nobody does right now, because the only information that we're getting out of this is from the Trump administration. We could potentially get some stuff from Venezuela, but the government of Venezuela isn't that much better than ours, you know? Oh boy, yeah, baby says, if flag burning becomes illegal, what creative methods will you use to destroy American flags? I don't really need to destroy an American flag. You know, I think people should have the right to, but that's not really part of my messaging strategy. Florida Attorney General just rescinded vax mandates for children. Welcome to Great America. So yeah, I guess everybody can really look forward to measles outbreaks happening in Florida in addition to Texas. Cameron Hodge says, do you see Maduro, the Venezuela legit? That I don't know about. Let's see here. Mav says, flag you ass going to jail. That's not a question, Mav. Ask a question. Russ says, what questions or points of curiosity do you have for people who have different views? I guess just why. You know, like, I don't see any value to the Republican platform. So I guess I just want to know what piece of information they did not receive, or were what piece of propaganda did they believe that caused them to have those beliefs. Let's see here. All right. Tyler Lask says, how do you destroy a flag if they ban flag burning? I guess just don't tell anybody. AJ Talks Politics says, Thomas Massie or JD Vance? I don't remember who Thomas Massie is, but not JD Vance. That guy sucks. All right. Yu-Gi-Oh says, do you think Governor Pritzker of Chicago should turn the police against Trump? So first of all, Chicago is a city, not a state, so he is the governor of Illinois. And I don't believe that we should be trying to get the police and the military to fight against each other. That doesn't seem very productive. But I'm hoping that Pritzker has something smart that he's planning to do to try to push back against the Trump administration, sending the military into into an American city. Red Scare Industry says, debate me. No, I don't do debates. They're stupid. Emily in the City says, do you think he will finally be held accountable, at least on the Epstein list? Potentially. It just depends on if people like me and you do the work, Emily. It will be really easy for the Republican Party to continue sweeping this under the rug without public pressure. Anna says, hey, I have a question. Sweet. Put it in the comments. LWJ says, your thoughts on Candace Owen for any political office? She is a liar. She is a con artist. She is a fucking right-wing ideologue who does not give a fuck about anybody but herself. She is going to lie and pretend like she is a normal-ass populist while she is at the same time being sued by the president of France for spreading conspiracy theories about how his wife is actually a man. So yeah, no, she's psychotic, does not deserve any of the normalization that people are gifting her. Rich the Rocketeer says, imagine if this posturing to annex Venezuela so that he can use it as a prison colony like Australia. I mean, possibly. He already has enough prison colonies in fucking El Salvador and South Sudan and Libya and shit like that. So yeah, it's fucking terrifying, guys. Alrighty, let's see here. Anonymous says, do you think Trump has done anything good? I reject the idea behind that question. Anonymous, like, why do I need to find a nice thing about John Wayne Gacy? Why do I have to say that the dude stabbing me in the throat has nice eyes? Cameron Hodge says, so about flags, if you burn any flag, you should be imprisoned with that logic, not just the USA. Yeah, I suppose. Emo Bird says, do you think they will finish Project 2025? According to recent estimates, they've finished about 80% of it already, so they will finish it if we allow them to finish it, Emo Bird. Xavier Pirani says, general opinion on Joe Biden. I think that Joe Biden has done some terrible things since he's been in office, but he also has done some great things. And I think that it is unwise and unfair to judge somebody by only their best and their worst actions. I think it was unconscionable that he decided to run for a second term. I think it was unconscionable that he decided to continue sending money and weapons to Israel, despite the fact that they were found guilty of doing war crimes. But the dude lowered medication costs. He stood with the unions. He had an excellent cabinet, and he appointed a bunch of great people like Lena Khan. He brought down prices and inflation for Americans. He ushered in the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history. Like, the list of accomplishments that were beneficial to every American is long. And so, yeah, I think he's got a real mixed records, but I definitely think that he deserves praise for the things that he's done well and commendation for the things that he hasn't. Let's see here. Petronolio says, opinion on Julian Assange, Snowden, and Hammond. That's not really my area of expertise, sorry. Genetic Talk says, you don't have to find the good in him. I didn't have to search long and hard. He was a man with a lot of empathy who did a lot of good things, so... Cameron Hodge says, do you believe Biden cancer was covered up and hidden? If so, should they be held accountable? I have seen no evidence that it was covered up. Emo Bird says, do you think Kamala Harris should run again? I don't know. I don't know if the widespread support is there. I think that when you lose an election to someone like Donald Trump, there's probably like a stain on you that is really hard to get rid of. Let's see here. Grain says universal basic income or national investment trust. I don't know what NIT is. Grain. Heart and Soul says opinion on Gavin Newsom. I think he's fine. Like, some people think he's the devil. I don't think he's the devil. I think he's made some mistakes. I think he's done a couple things that are kind of sketchy, but he's done a lot of really good things. He is doing totally great at trolling the Trump administration. I think he would be a completely fine president. Not my first choice, but totally fine. Negative income tax. Oh, I haven't heard anything specific about what a negative income tax would entail, Grain, but I am for anything that infuses investment, capital, and resources into marginalized communities and impoverished Americans. The rich have too much, the poor have too little. Let's solve that problem. Right, Genetic Talk says, do you think Newsom can win? Yeah, sure. Why not? He's handsome, he's tall, he's a straight white guy. Maybe America is too misogynistic to have a woman president at this point. So, yeah, I think a lot of the Democratic base is very skittish around nominating anybody who isn't a straight white man these days because, they put up a woman against Trump. She lost. They put up a guy against Trump. He won. They put up a woman against Trump. She lost. So, I think that even a lot of very hardcore progressives who want there to be different types of presidents besides straight white men are worried that the generic American is not going to, be about that in the year of our Lord 2028. Alrighty, Cameron Hodge says, "Why is Cali one of the most expensive places to live?" Newsom's policy, not sure. No, I don't think that it is accurate to put that all on Governor Newsom. These are problems that have been growing for a long time. California is an expensive place to live because it's a popular place to live. Everybody wants to be here, and there are not enough houses for all the people that want to live here. It's the same reason why every city is more expensive than rural areas, is because people want to go there. And there's also transportation where you can buy corn right next to the farm, and you don't have to pay for gas to get it to the store in the city. All right, Jeanette Jensen says, "I'm a California native, and it's been this way the whole time." Haha. Yeah, I was born in California also. Let's see here. Cameron Hodge, "We need Andrew Yang. He was my pick in 2020. Like, I don't hate Andrew Yang, but I do think it's weird when extremely rich people just think that they can step into politics without actually doing any, consolidation building or learning how the government works or anything like that. I loved UBI as an idea, but let's see here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I would much rather vote for somebody who had a job in politics than somebody who did not have a job in politics if they are a rich person, you know. Alrighty. Ronald Schaefer says, "Newsom, a corporate dem who will never give you donor money." I mean, I'm not really concerned about him giving me donor money, but I mean, he would be better than every Republican. So I'm still happy with him as the nominee. But yeah, he's again not my first choice. Let's see here. Dustin Polk says, "Do you think Posse Comitatus is an obscure ruling?" It is, because I don't know what it is. Dan Blackroyd, Zanku Chicken, that's where everyone wants to live in California. Accurate. Flamingo Mo says, "What is Andrew Yang even doing now?" Yeah, that's a really good question. Emo Bird says, "Are you excited for midterm elections?" I'm excited for people like me and you to do the work of getting massive voter turnout for the midterm elections. Let's get more Americans to vote in this midterm than have ever voted in a midterm before, and let's make sure that Democrats fucking sweep it. Excuse me. Did I say Gavin or Newsom? Governor Newsom? Gavin Newsom? Yeah, I guess that is kind of a fun little portmanteau there. It's the Rocketeer. Let's see here. Dustin Polk says, "Do you think Posicom?" I already answered that one. It is an obscure ruling because I don't remember what it is. Billy says, "Do you support a free Palestine?" Yes, I do. Kama Tatas. That's pretty funny. Right. Coworker transferred from Georgia, was getting about $9 an hour, got up to $10 raise when he came to California. I hope that's enough. Yu-Gi-Oh says, "As an immigrant, how do I have a conversation in sociology with my own disappointment with everything?" I don't know. I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh. That's a rough one. It is difficult to be a guest in this country that is potentially going to treat you very poorly and still believe in the promise of a place like America. And so yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe yoga, maybe a little meditation will help. But yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for you. I understand the struggle. The struggle is real. LWJ says, "Your thoughts on Andy Bashir for president?" I don't know too much about him, but he seems like an okay guy to me. Carmine says, "Insane California might seem expensive if the minimum wage in other states is lower." I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, Carmine. Emo Bird says, "Whatever happened to Beto O'Rourke? Any thoughts?" I really liked Beto, but he chose some really difficult races to run in. I think it was probably a mistake to run for president because that was an extremely crowded field. Yeah, I think you should really just stay focused on Texas and turning Texas as blue as humanly possible. Anonymous 101 says, "What are your thoughts on Obama?" I like Obama. I like him a lot. He was hindered by the fact that he was the first black president, because I'm sure that there were a bunch of other great progressive things that he wanted to do, but he had to toe the line. And as Ta-Nehisi Coates put it, he said, "Obama walked on ice for 8 years and never slipped." There was a massive and unprecedented obstruction campaign that occurred because Barack Obama got elected, and I think that really hurt his chances as well. I think that if a if a white male Democrat had the kind of overwhelming support that Obama had in 2008 and he won the election, I think they probably would have gotten away with doing a lot more. But I could be wrong about that, you know. Joe Skaggs says, how do you think the governor of Kentucky would do in a presidential race in 28? I don't know. Joey says, why would I ask a failed comedian about politics? I mean, I am a touring stand-up comedian. I've successfully made tons of money doing comedy, so I don't know why you would think that I'm a failed comedian when that is literally my job. Right, Ronald Schaefer says, Obama, Clinton, corporate Dems give you Trump. I don't necessarily agree with that, Ronald Schaefer. Paradox Penguin says, how do you feel about the split amongst the ruling elite, tech barons versus managerial globalists? I mean, they basically are on the same team, even if they argue about the finer points. I think we need to be trying to overthrow both of them. All right, Cameron Hodge, with executive orders, most of Trump's policies can be undone in 2028, correct? Yes, that is correct. LWJ says, can Trump really run again for president? If so, how? So it is illegal and unconstitutional for Trump to run for a third term, but he's going to try. I don't know how he's going to try. He'll either try something really sketchy, like declaring martial law and canceling all elections. He might try to petition Congress or the Supreme Court for a waiver. He's going to try. It's not legal, but he's going to try. That's the long and short of it. Right. Curtis and Hurdle says Kamala flipped on many issues from primaries to 2024. Curtis, I don't care. I don't care. I don't think that flip-flopping is the own that people think that it is. Also, I don't care that she switched her positions. She still would have been a way better president, and I believe in voting for better over worse. Emo Bird says, is there a way to stop waivers? I mean, it's the same work that you and I have to do anyways, of voting, organizing, recruiting, striking, protesting, boycotting, calling our representatives. It's all the same. You know, if you want to stop Trump from running for a third term, it's the exact same playbook. Mabato says, if there were a scorched earth gerrymander on both sides, who do you think would win? I think the smart money is on Republicans because they've been doing this for a lot longer in many places. And so, yeah, it's not good, everybody. We're really just trying to stop the bleeding at this point. This is triage. Paradox Penguin says, this guy's clueless to the true levers of power in the West. Don't listen to him. Congratulations, Paradox Penguin. That is not a question. You are out of here. Scrolling down to the bottom, Lydia says, what are waivers? I was talking about like a hypothetical waiver that Trump would ask the Supreme Court to grant him so that he could run for a third term. Cameron Hodge says, when voting, what's more important, character or policy? In the primary, character; in the general, policy. Dandy Dan says, your Super Bowl picks. Oh, I don't follow sports, so I don't even know what teams are up for it. But I'm going to say the Yankees. All right, Perry says, is Thomas Massie good or bad? I actually completely forgot who Thomas Massie is, so I'm not really sure. Cameron Hodge says, what's your honest opinion on Mike Pence? So I actually know somebody who's related to Mike Pence, and I always think that people that are like that are secretly like psychotic, but he told me that he's literally just the most boring human being on the planet. I have a certain amount of respect for any politician on the right who has stood up to Donald Trump. And so for that, I will give Mike Pence like the tiniest amount of golf claps. But like every Republican politician, he is lying to you. He is lying to you that the Republican platform is the platform. He is a Christian nationalist. He wants to force everybody to be his religion and to have to live the same kind of life that he has forced himself to live. And I do not believe that that is the promise of America. I do not believe that that is good for any nation, let alone one that is supposed to be a melting pot of different types of people from all over the world, all different religions. Righty. LWJ says, do you think there should be term limits on the Supreme Court? Yes, I do. Swanky Frankie says, it's always Republicans on their way out of politics that speak up. Yeah, you know, sometimes they speak up beforehand, but then, you know, they lose their primaries. You know, Flamingo Mo says Thomas Massie is a Republican congressman from Kentucky who is co-sponsoring the release of the files, the files for the guy that lived on the island. If we know what we're talking about here, you know, I don't think that any Republican politician or Republican talking head automatically, for me, loses a billion points because you are fighting for a platform that is bad for people and bad for America. And you're supporting other politicians that are potentially even worse than you by being a Republican, by making sure that people like Mike Johnson has the gavel and fucking who's fucking running the Senate right now? Is it still Mitch McConnell? It can't still be Mitch McConnell. Yeah, who's fucking running? Oh, it's that guy, Tom, what's his name or whatever. Yeah. They're all terrible. So even if you are at least a little bit good because you are trying to get documents released for that guy on the island, or you stood up to Trump and didn't let him do January 6th or whatever, I'll give you a couple of points back. But mostly, I'm just like thumbs down, my guy. Garilo says, "What's your solution to the Israeli-Arab conflict?" Oh my God, a problem that has confounded all of the smartest human beings for decades and has only gotten worse with every single administration. I'm going to solve that. I mean, you know, I'm going to just say the simplest thing that I can, and that is diplomacy and accelerating as far away from physical conflict as we can. Alrighty, let's see here. Curtis and Hurl says, "I didn't like January 6th. Me neither." Cameron Hodge says, "Thoughts on China's parade with Putin and North Korea? Should be concerned." 100%. The worst offenders, Russia, North Korea, India, Iran, they are all working together. They're working on being the new Axis. And and it's unclear what side America will fall on. So yeah, 100% we should all be fucking worried as hell. Did it for the story said, "What's your opinion on the idea that H-1B workers should be paid at the highest possible market rate in their field because they're supposed to be the best and brightest and better than what America has to offer?" I'm not really educated about the specifics about the H-1B visa. This sounds like some real, wonky policy specifics that I do not have available to me. So sorry, did it for the story. But I believe that in general that immigrants are net positive on this country. So Cameron Hodge says, "Do you believe China is an enemy to America?" I don't believe that any nation in itself is an enemy to America, but I believe that certain rulers are adversarial to other countries. Like Putin is clearly adversarial to America. Xi Jinping, I think it's a little bit more of an open question. I think that he would much rather China be the dominant force in global politics than America, and honestly, he's kind of crushing it as far as like the things he should be doing to make that happen. They're fucking kicking our ass in green technology. Xi Jinping is working now with all the nations that refuse to trade with America because of Trump's stupid fucking tariff policy. Like, Trump is giving the world to Xi Jinping. It's fucking psychotic. Aren't we supposed to be hawkish? Is he supposed to be fucking going hard against them? Instead, he's just giving them the world on the platter. Alrighty, let's see here. Cameron Hodge says, "I disagree with you on some stuff, but I love hearing your thoughts, and you make great points." Thank you, Cameron Hodge. I appreciate you being here. Ricky O'Mahony, good to see you again. Says, "Character isn't important. You elect someone to do a job, not be your friend. Policy, 100%." Yeah, but I think that you can make certain assumptions through character, Ricky O'Mahony. The fact that the fact that Trump and his family stole money from a children's cancer charity, I think that is the kind of character thing that could inform your vote, shall we say. Danny is terrible. Hey, how are you doing today? I'm doing pretty good. How are you? Alrighty, excellent questions so far today. Excellent engagement. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I'm not wrapping things up. I'm just taking this little breather as we're waiting for new questions to say thank you. I appreciate y'all being here and the support. Dalton says, "Do you think religion plays too much into politics?" 100%. And the Republican Party is doing their best to put more religion into politics instead of less. It is one of a billion reasons why I don't think anybody should ever vote for Republicans. I think 100% we should be replacing them with Democrats, and then we replace the Democrats that we don't like with better Democrats instead of replacing them with Republicans. Ready. Cameron Hodge says, "I think the First Lady has very democratic viewpoints." Who, Melania? I don't think so. No, I don't really vibe with Melania. She doesn't seem like a good person. Ronald Sheffer says, "When you're owned by big oil, you have to let China rule clean energy." I mean, yeah, that is the deal with fucking Republican administrations, is they're willing to throw America under the bus so that their big oil coal daddies will be able to make billions and billions more dollars. CS1 says, was the White House video of items being thrown out of the window actually AI? I know that the White House is saying it's AI, but I don't believe that it actually was. The White House is a bunch of liars. Cameron Hodge says, majority of Americans are Christians, so I believe GOP uses religion to help with them with votes. That is 100% accurate, Cameron Hodge. Danny is terrible says, Trump is one of the worst presidents morally we've had. The only others who are worse owned people. Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate, Danny. Alrighty, Dalton says, ooh, do you think Trump is Russian intelligence? So I don't know, but if he were, he would be doing exactly what he is doing right now. So I think for all intents and purposes, we can assume that he is. Diego Vargas says, are we at war with Venezuela now or what? I don't believe that an actual declaration has been declared by either country, but I do think it's fucking weird as hell that America is cool with Trump escalating tensions with Venezuela for some fucking reason. Yeah, we can't trust them based on we can't trust the information that's coming out of the White House, so we don't fucking know about this ship that they fucking sank. Like, we have no fucking idea what happened over there. Oy, 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 oy. Ready. Yeah, I am really looking forward to hearing Pod Save America's discussion on what's going on in Venezuela. I'm sure they're going to have a much more nuanced and detailed take on this than I do. Maggie Loves America says, you could see the freaking drugs from the air. Could you, Maggie? Were you there at the time? Because, yeah, I don't really trust anything that comes out of this administration. Alley Bay says, why are GOP Christians so against other religion? What makes theirs right and others wrong? I mean, they're being told that their religion is correct. They've been that message has been force fed to them since birth many times, and every single day, every piece of content that they consume just confirms that is the fact, and that everybody else is a fucking evil Satanist, gay worshiper of drugs and rock and roll music. Alrighty, Fog of War Productions says it is the Venezuelan Navy, though. They've lost multiple ships to rammings in recent years. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if we are doing this in cooperation with the government of Venezuela because drug cartels are ramming their ships and winning, then yeah, that's fine. But I don't know if that's actually happening. Keyhole says, do you like Zohran Mamdani? I do, and I think that everybody needs to recognize that the billionaires are going to be on his fucking ass no matter what he fucking does. And so you have to take everything that you see and hear about him with a massive fucking grain of salt, because it's probably coming from a billionaire content farm that is just trying to take them down because they don't want their taxes raised, because they're fucking unbelievably corrupt and greedy and fucking, yeah, without a lick of fucking empathy or sympathy for any other human being. Maggie says, so you're a communist. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I am not a capitalist. I'm a progressive, and I believe in a mixed model like they have in Norway, Maggie. Puff says, we literally have a $50 million bounty on Maduro. Yes, I don't know what you mean by that comment, though. Mrs. Compton says, why doesn't Trump wear a wedding ring? Probably makes it harder to cheat on his wife, I guess. Maybe he doesn't want them to get lost in Laura Loomer's sniz, maybe. I don't know if I'm allowed to make that kind of a racy joke here. Alrighty, let's see here. Maggie says, so you like crime and criminals taking over our country? No, I don't, Maggie. What a weird thing to say. Nothing that I have said has suggested that. Do you have a problem with all the criminals that Donald Trump has pardoned, Maggie? So, you know, it's like, I don't know. I think that you probably are picking and choosing the crimes and the criminals that you really are having a problem with, you know? CS1 says it can't be a joint mission if we have a bounty on him. Yeah, I didn't say it was. I just said, you know, perhaps that would be an okay version of it, you know? Alrighty. Danny's Terrible says, actually, Donald Trump does, seeing he is a criminal who took over the highest office of our country. Dalton says, I am so sick of people using hyper... Oh, I think you're about to say hyper-partisan language or some shit like that. I don't know. Let's see here. Oops, says Dalton. Don N says, besides Newsom and Buttigieg, I have been really enjoying Tallarico lately. Feels very authentic. Yeah, he seems fine to me. Also, I am going to support whoever I support in the primary, and then whoever wins the primary, I will support them in the general, regardless of if it is Newsom or Buttigieg or Tallarico or whoever. Dalton says, religion isn't bad as long as it isn't infringing on one's own free will to follow religion or not. That is 100% accurate. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Fog of War Productions says, does America have a national identity? If so, what is it? I mean, that's an open argument. Fog War Productions. People on the left think it's one thing. People on the right think it's something else. If I am so bold as to speak for the right of America, I think that they believe that the identity of America is a white Christian nation that has a traditional nuclear family and that abides by the rules of the Bible as they are being taught it in their fucking mega churches and shit like that. Where I believe the vision that America from the left is a multicultural, multi-religious melting pot that accepts people for whoever they are, be they white, black, gay, straight, male, female, and everything in between. And that people should be free to live their lives. That includes freedom from the tyranny of big business and giant corporations and the billionaire class. And I think that we have spent way too much time and energy in this country not addressing the tyranny of the billionaire class and giant corporations, because that is the yoke that we are all currently fucking suffering under. All right. Dalton says, I'm sick of people using hyper-reactionary rhetoric to situations when they themselves offer nothing, is what you meant to type. Gotcha. I hope you're not talking about me, Dalton, because I do not believe that I am articulating those points as you mentioned. Billiam says, Galvin owns a mega mansion. Okay. Are rich people only allowed to run for president when they are right-wing? Cannot left-wing people be rich because they have done things in their lives? Like, what the fuck, man? The rules that we have for Democrats are so much harsher than the rules that we have for Republicans. Don't you think that's interesting? That we judge Democrats by this way harsher standards, and the things that Republicans get away with are unthinkable for Democratic politicians? Seems really strange to me that we would have this double standard. Let's see here. Dalton says, oh no, other people, wink, wink. What do you think that I said that was what you're talking about? Hyper-reactionary rhetoric to situations. And I think it is a stretch to say that I know nothing also. Fog War Production says, galvanized Newsom makes him sound like he's made of metal. That's very funny. Alrighty. Mrs. Compton says, if you could move to another country, where would you go and why? I mean, probably Canada, just because it's the closest thing to America. It's very easy hop, skip, and a jump. But there are other countries that I visited that I've loved. Like I really enjoy European countries. I really like Japan. I thought that was dope as hell. Yeah. Alrighty, scrolling on the Vargas. Diego Vargas says, recently an economist said that America is in a downfall. Thoughts on that? I mean, it is a downfall that has been engineered by the Republican politicians and the billionaire class that is working with them. It is exactly what they want it to be. It is a country where you cannot leave your economic station, that it is impossible for you to better your life through hard work and education. You have to be the fucking pick six lotto winner in order to not be poor for the rest of your fucking life, and then have your generations of children also be poor. And depending on where you live, then giant corporations are allowed to just fucking shovel the chemical runoff from their factories into your children's food and give everybody that cancer and shit like that. Yeah, it is exactly what the billionaire class wants. It is exactly what the Republican politicians want. So yeah, 100% we are in decline because they are making it. They're doing it on purpose. George, people decided Trump was fine, so not voting for Kamala would be no biggie. Well, they were wrong, George. Dan Blackbird says, Indonesia, working at that animal sanctuary that rehabilitates orangutan orphans. Yeah, that does sound nice. Although, isn't Indonesia currently having, political strife? Says a real minefield to be jumping into. Billiam says, host says only white people voted for Trump. That is literally never said that in my entire life, Billiam. But please, continue trying to, fucking straw man me, man. Good Lord. Y'all are so transparent. Joseph Woolley says, how do we balance all this new technology like AI and bots with people's jobs? I mean, I think that we need to start structuring our economy more for the idea that there are going to be 1% as many jobs as there used to be. How do we take care of people? How can people afford to live if almost nobody has a job? And I think that we need to start thinking about taking care of people from the bottom up in order to avoid some sort of apocalypse situation where we have not started taking care of people before they have not been able to get a job and not been able to pay for rent or something like that. That's the reason why crime goes up, is because people become desperate and can't afford to live. All right, Dalton says people need to own the right to their existence, period, to combat AI. Don't really know what that's about. Mrs. Compton says, do you believe the contest was rigged? I mean, it was in certain ways, but we don't have any evidence that votes were changed. But we know that the Republican Party and the billionaire class were engaged in massive campaign finance violations. We know that they are doing massive voter suppression techniques in Democratic areas, like closing down polling locations and closing down DMVs so people can't get driver's licenses. Yeah, you know, they cheat to win elections, but I don't know if it's as as serious as they got the computers to actually change the votes. Tyro says, ever since I added you, I no longer get hot singles near you when I jump online. Sorry about that. That's my bad. All right. Cameron Hodge says, why were the polls so wrong in 2016 and 2020? Can we trust them moving forward? So it appears that Trump has an effect on polling in that people who do not answer polls are going to vote for him. And the reason why the polls were much more accurate in 24 is because pollsters learned how to account for that. Polling is more of an art than a science. And so anytime that a massive force like the Trump campaign comes into existence, then it's obviously going to skew people's models and be less accurate than it would be before. All right, Dalton says, not every Republican is a fascist, but every fascist is a Republican. That is accurate. Alrighty. Let's see here. Danny is Terrible says, we should not have billionaires. The wage gap is the reason our city has so much crime. Yeah, accurate. CS1 says, money in politics makes it rigged. Yes, and it's literally the Republican Party that is causing money to be able to be funneled into politics. If we voted for more Democrats, we could have regulations against campaign finance. We could have a campaign finance regulatory agency that actually has some teeth to keep billionaires from doing massive campaign finance violations. All right, Billiam says Republicans are about white people is what you said, basically saying only white people voted for him. I literally did not say that at all, Billiam. So again, you can miss me with that shit. Congratulations. Ramsey says, accept my guest request. No. Shawnee Flytrap, hey, how are you? Haven't seen you in a bit. Well, whose fault is that, Shawnee Flytrap? I'm on here every fucking weekday. Dalton says, someone needs to remind Republicans you got to spend money to make money. Billiam says, you did say that. Nope. So, sorry, Billiam. You're out of here, buddy. You have bored me to blocking you. All right, Scott says, drop-off rate on POTUS choice makes 0 sense. Vote machines worked on prior election without audits. Scott, I don't know how accurate, I don't know how persuasive I find that argument, because there are a bunch of other statistical correlations that do make sense as far as like why Republicans did so much better in 2024 than, previous elections or than we thought they would. So yeah, I'm skeptical. We'll see how Rockland comes out. The Rockland County case is the most convincing evidence that I have seen that vote totals were potentially changed. But there is a lot of statistical correlation that makes the outcome of the election make sense. Ready. Holographo says, would you please explain what an auto pen is? I'm not exactly sure what the mechanism of an auto pen is, but the short version is that politicians of every stripe, be they president or city councilor or mayor, they have to sign a lot of things. And so they have a thing that signs it for them specifically so that they're not just literally spending all day signing documents. Mrs. Compton says, what do you think about the survivors' testimonies today? I actually didn't watch them, but I'm really glad that they're out there speaking. Good for them. Alrighty. Let's see here. Shiny Flytrap says they're usually on the state level, though, aren't they? Auto pens? No. Everybody uses auto pens. Every president has used auto pens. Let's see here. Did it for the history. Says, I don't get what people defend billionaires. Someone making $200K a year actually has more in common with someone making $30K than with a CEO. Did it for the story. It's because billionaires have been hard at work spreading propaganda that makes people think that they are the ones that should be lionized and praised. And if we want to get real fucking tinfoil hat about it, I think that shows like Cribs and Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous were fucking billionaire psyops, designed to get people to worship billionaires as though they're somehow better than us, John D says, why do the Republicans in Congress blindly ignore Trump's corruption? because they're either on board with it, like, yeah, we'll let you be corrupt so long as we can get a little taste also, or they're scared of him, John D. But the fact of the matter is, it is literally their job to be stopping Trump's corruption. So just one more of a billion reasons why we should unelect every single fucking one of them, because they are not doing their fucking job. They are not upholding their oath to the fucking Constitution. So what are you even fucking doing there, guys? You know? So yeah, unelect every Republican, everybody. Replace him with a Democrat. And if you don't like that Democrat, replace him with a better Democrat. All right, Danny is terrible. Says Trump is a billionaire who loves to serve himself and his billionaire's friends. That is accurate, Danny. Alrighty, where are we at? We're about 50 minutes in, and comments have started calming down a little bit. So get in your questions. Master Liberty says someone say Constitution. What's up, Master Liberty? Good to see you again. Get in your final questions, everybody, as we start to wrap things up. Lemmy Gardenmeister says, do you know of any bipartisan legislation for campaign finance reform since 2002 McCain-Feingold? Oh, that is a really good question. Bipartisan legislation? No, I don't think so. I think that ever since the election of Barack Obama, the Republican Party has been firmly in the camp of we need to cheat to win. So they're not going to be working with the Democratic Party on any kind of campaign reform whatsoever. They are fully bought into let us abuse our relationship with the billionaires in order to massively overfund for every election, and then we will lie and cheat and corrupt our way into electoral victories. Alrighty, but I could be wrong about that, Lemmy Gardenmeister. Potentially there was, but yeah, I would not be surprised if there was literally nothing since that 2002 legislation. Danny is terrible says, honest opinion on the Supreme Court hearing a case to overturn gay marriage. Do you think it will be done? I think that it is likely that they will send gay marriage back to the states. And it's the exact same thing that they did with the Dobbs decision with abortion. Yeah, the Republican, extremely right-wing Supreme Court, they have no legal ethos. Their legal ethos is whatever Trump and the Republican Party want, we will do. So sometimes they're traditionalists, sometimes they're originalists, sometimes they're, yeah, they do whatever they want, basically, regardless of what the law says. Right, CS1 says, do you support taxing the mega churches? Sure, why not? Right. Anyway, how have you been? I'm okay. How are you doing, Master Liberty? Cameron Hodge says, are the National Guard in USA cities going against their oath? Should they be discharged? I don't know where the line is drawn for following an illegal order. I want to say that it's probably not that strict, where, you're being ordered to just go to an American city. I don't know if we need to insist that every soldier be the kind of constitutional scholar that would automatically know that that is against the law, But I think it's more like, if you're going to be doing, extrajudicial, murders or, rendering people against their civil rights. I think those are a little bit more like, we will hold you accountable for those crimes, Right. Ali Bay says, why is the GOP so scared of gay people just simply existing and having equal rights? I think it's a lot of things, Ali Bay. I think that some of it is a type of religious conservatism that teaches them that is that is an unnatural lifestyle. I think some of them are doing it just for votes. I think a lot of them are probably completely fine with gay people and are just like, no, I have to say all this wildly homophobic shit in order to win elections. And maybe some of them are further to the gay side of the spectrum than they want to be, and so they believe that just everybody should be violently repressing their instincts and desires the way that they are. They're like, I sacrificed my desire to be in a fucking 15 dude bathhouse. Why can't you do that? I fucking forced myself to have sex with a woman, every night and made my kids, the way the Lord told me to. And you should be forced to do that as well. That's very funny, Scott. Righty. Dalton says, I really like this live, by the way. You're really chill. Thank you, Dalton. I appreciate you being here. Okay. Scott says, have to keep the religion right on their side. Yeah. Badger75 says, Trump sent the National Guard to Washington this year, but not on January 6th. Yeah, pretty weird. Don't you think, Badger75? Pretty weird. CS1 says, if Mike Johnson spent so much time on Grindr, why is he so against LGBTQ? Do we know that that's a fact, CS1? Yeah, I don't want to cast aspersions. I don't want to say that we know something about Mike Johnson that we officially don't. But yeah, thank you everybody for the questions and for watching and everything. I really appreciate everybody being here, all the likes and the gifts and the shares, and it is because of you guys that I'm able to do these shows that I hope are helping. I hope that I'm doing the Lord's work here of trying to make better, political engagements happen and normalize actual productive political conversations and not just knee-jerk hyper-partisanship and hyperbole where Gavin Newsom is either the Lord and Savior or he's the worst human being on the planet or, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just really appreciate your guys being here and for all the supports. Let's see here. Jeanette Jensen says, I actually saw that came out a few months ago. The Mike Johnson grinder thing. Ooh, I'll have to give that a Google. I certainly don't want to be accused of slander or making things up, So yeah, if you want to support the channel, I appreciate all the support you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the paid kind. So you can send gifts, you can join my Patreon, you can buy things from my store. Check out all my links in my bio. If there are any questions that come up not during the live stream, y'all can hit me up. The project of unelecting every Republican does not end when the live stream is over. So DMs are open. Email me through my website and join the Discord. That's another great place to get in touch. The Discord also has great resources where you can find book and podcast recommendations. You can find recommendations for civil actions, groups to join if you want to be part of the solution, ways to organize and recruit, so that we can fucking own the midterms and unelect every single Republican that is up. Dayglow Ginger says, I'll cast aspersions for you. He and Lady Graham have pool boys. How interesting. What interesting thing that I did not say that I was just reading off of the prompter here. Firewall Production says, me and the boys bring an entire galaxies into compliance in the name of Gavin Newsom. I'm not mad at that. Master Liberty says, well, it depends on what capacity the guard is called up in. If they're called up via Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15, then they can execute federal laws, but not state laws if I remember correctly, due to lack of jurisdiction. How interesting, Master Liberty. Again, these comments of yours are going way the fuck over my head. And yeah, just my heartfelt plea that y'all will do the work. And if you know non-voters, if you know people that don't pay attention to politics, and you want to if you want to engage, if you want to assist in me engaging with those types of people, then please send them my way. I want to start a podcast called Deep Canvassing, where I have long conversations with people to try to convince them and recruit them to be part of the solution and to vote for better politicians. And so if you know people like that, then send them my way. I will happily maintain their anonymity if they don't want their names and faces out there. We can definitely do that. Alrighty. Tfago War says, do you think the Democratic Party should sponsor rodeos? I mean, yeah, do whatever you can to get your message out there. Dalton says, may I recommend the Book of People's History of the United States? I've heard good things about it. All right, everybody, thank you again for being here. Go out there and do the work, people. Do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I'll see y'all here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care.